Hello, welcome to the Heart of the Piano YouTube channel. I'm Bob Rose. If you're watching this video, you are probably wasting your time learning piano technique. That's a very bold claim, obviously. Now, I'm not saying that you shouldn't learn piano technique, but that there are other things that need to be in place. Otherwise, it's going to be completely wasted. So most students who come to me for piano lessons, at the moment I'm teaching mostly adults. I don't only teach adults, but basically most adults think, amateur pianists, they think that what they need, they think that what they're missing is really good piano technique. They're like, oh, my scales aren't good enough, this isn't good enough. If my scales are amazing, if my technique's amazing, if I can do all the arpeggios, then I'll be a good pianist. And I'm sorry to say this, but good technique is not actually what you think that you're looking for. And even if you get taught technique, it's going to be completely wasted. Let me just give you a little bit of an analogy. This is an analogy that I used in a recent video. The analogy is, let's say that you want to learn to play tennis. Let's say that you're pretty much a beginner at playing tennis and you get a very, very high level coach who's used to working with pros. And the coach teaches you how to do, let's say, forehand swing. I don't play tennis. Is that what it's called? You know, you play forehand. So you know, you get told exactly how to move your hand, your wrist, your arm, all the things to do in your body. And imagine you're there, you're trying to learn all this stuff. You're thinking about all your different body parts. And you're tense, you're nervous. You're not really feeling what's going on in your body, but you're trying really hard to think about how you move your body. And your coach has just given you like a 1,001 things to think about. Do you think that in that state, you're actually going to play really good tennis and win points against someone more experienced? The answer, I hope, fairly obviously is going to be no. One of the main things being, if you're not sort of feeling in your body, that's going to be one of the main things. But I don't want to get ahead of myself. But basically, most people, they're like this tennis player when they're learning the piano. They think what they need is the coach to show them all the advanced stuff. But unless you have a whole load of various mental states of being, you know, you can have the world's best tennis coach, and that's not going to suddenly make you an amazing player unless you have a certain amount of mental stuff going on. Now, I like talking about tennis as a kind of example because when you watch tennis tournaments at a really high level, you can see that it's all about what's going on in the mind. There was a book called The Inner Game of Tennis that then was sort of adapted to become The Inner Game of Music. And these sort of inner game things are so important, and they're arguably way more important than the actual technique. When you've got these inner game things, then the technique is useful. And I want to make it really clear, as a teacher, I absolutely teach technique. I totally teach technique. I teach advanced technique. I teach nitty-gritty technique. But more importantly, if I see that my students are not in sort of certain receptive, healthy, good states of mind that allows that technique to come in, it is really just a waste of time. And also, you know, I've been told I've got pretty good technique, and for most of my life, I was never taught technique. All the things that I'm about to talk about is what gave me good technique. I then didn't exactly need to be shown it. Although recently, and, you know, a couple of years ago, I did go to a very high level teacher and we worked on, you know, just refining aspects of my technique. So, you know, I'm not saying it's never useful. Now, basically, very recently, I did a video called Comprehensive Guide to Jumps at the Piano Part 1, a deep dive into the psychology of good technique. Now, I ended up just basically getting very distracted and going down all the rabbit holes of the psychology of good technique. So all the things that I spoke about in that video, most of them don't really have much to do with jumps, and they're sort of really valid for all of these things I'm talking about. So this video, I mean, I'm already making this way longer than I wanted it to be, but I want this video to be a too long didn't read, you know, very short as I can try and make it. I'm not good at making short videos, but I'm going to try and make this as short as I can, just give you the brief bullet points, and there'll be links above and links in the description below that if you find this interesting, or you're questioning it, or you're going, I'm not sure I agree with that, then, you know, go to the links, go to the links above and below, and basically as I get to the points, each point in this video, there will be a little link above. So, and I'm also going to refer to some podcast episodes that I did that also give you more tips on the mental things that you can do, so that the technique that you learn is actually on fertile soil. It's actually useful then. But for most people, and I'm going to guess most people watching this at the moment, learning technique is going to be wasted unless you are already good at or doing the things that I'm about to talk about now. There's also going to be, I'm going to put chapters in the description below so that you can go to the relevant bits if you're interested. So, from the video, Comprehensive Guide to Jumps, there's 4 main points that I talk about that if you're not doing these things, technique is going to be kind of wasted on you. The first one is called audiation. Audiation is basically the act of imagining sound. It's hearing sound in your imagination, in your mind. And to go back to the sports analogy, if you're playing tennis, if you're just thinking about your arm, your technique, all the things that you're doing, and you're not actually thinking about what your goal is. Your goal should be, where do you want the ball? Basically, a lot of people study sports psychology in a huge amount of depth because there's a lot of money in sports. There's much less money in music, so less people study the psychology of music. But in sports psychology, there's a finding that is backed up over and over and over again. And that is, focusing on the goal of what you want is always much more effective than focusing on the mechanics and physical technique of what you're doing. So this is studied a lot in golf. So if you're doing a golf swing, over and over again, this is found that if you're thinking about how to do a really good golf swing with good technique, that will never, ever give you as good a result as just looking where you want the ball to go. Now, this doesn't mean that you never study technique or you never think about technique or work on your technique when you're playing golf. But when it matters, you need to be thinking about the goal of your actions, not the mechanics of how you do it. And in sports, that's probably really obvious. And most people who've played sports know if you're playing anything that requires a racket or a ball or that kind of thing, you have to look and think about where you want that ball to go. It's no good just thinking about technique. Now, in music, it's a lot less obvious, and people can get really drawn into staring at their fingers, staring at trying to press all the correct levers, trying to have good technique. But like sports, this is not healthy, and this is not going to give you the best results. The equivalent in music of where do you want that ball to go is, what is the sound that you want? And that is why so much advanced piano teaching and advanced music teaching is about the art of how to listen. And, it may seem like, well, why do I need to know how to listen? I hear it. But no, actually, when we're playing, a lot of the time, there's so much to think about. There's so much going on that if we're not careful and if we don't actually practice this, we don't really listen. We don't know how to divert most of our awareness to listening and imagining the sound that we want, rather than all the things that our teachers told us to do, reading the notes, focusing on trying to get all the correct notes. This is not helpful. The most important thing is sound. So if you want more information about that, go watch the video, the link's below, the link's above. Go watch more about that in the section on audiation. And then the next thing that I spoke about in that video is something called interoception. This is one of the most important things that I'm constantly encouraging my students to think about, because without this, really everything is kind of wasted. So interoception is the awareness of everything going on inside the body. It's the physical sensations. It's the direct felt experience of what is going on inside our bodies. And I want to absolutely make clear, this is not thinking about what's going on in the body. It's not attaching labels. It's not, if you can put it into words and their thoughts, that's probably not it. This is what happens before words, before we verbalize anything. It's just the pure physical, direct, felt sense before it turns into a thought. This is like interoception. For more information on this, go to the link below, go to the section about interoception, and basically if you're playing tennis, and imagine you're playing tennis and you're really stressed out and you're not feeling anything in your body. You're not feeling your arm, you're not feeling your wrist, you're not feeling your shoulder, you're not feeling your body, but you're in your head and you're thinking about everything that you're doing. That should be pretty intuitive and obvious that you're just not going to play well. But yet, when amateur pianists play the piano, they think it's completely normal to not feel anything that's going on in their bodies. For many, many reasons, this is not a good state to be in. So yeah, go watch the links for more information on that. It's so important. Now, another thing that I've spoken about, I made one video about the left brain, right brain hemisphere. And it's controversial, so I don't want to, get into a massive rabbit hole with that now. But what I noticed, if you watch that video and sort of get the gist of the difference between the left brain hemisphere and the right brain hemisphere, and I sort of talk a little bit about the controversy behind that and why I think it's useful. In my experience, most amateur pianists who are not super amazing get stuck in more of a left brain state. Go watch the link below for more about left brain, right brain, and why it can be really useful to get into a right brain hemisphere state. Also, in the video that I keep talking about, the deep dive into the psychology of good technique, I talk a little bit about some aspects of being in the right brain hemisphere. But there will also be more videos coming out soon where I talk about more of the hard science between left brain, right brain, and how we can use it in a practical way learning instruments, because I think this doesn't get spoken about enough. So then the fourth thing is about how important it is to have patience. And when I spoke about this in the psychology of good technique, with leaps and jumps, I tried to make it really clear that this is more than just a platitude. This is more than just, oh, just be patient. But it's about what happens and what goes wrong when we are impatient. And I talk in quite a lot of detail about how we actually feel physically impatience as a thing in the chest, and how if we just catch it in time, we can prevent a whole load of stuff that happens when we start to feel impatient, that, we're practicing and we're pulled and compelled into bad habits and stuff like that. So, I don't want to go into it too much, but I talk about this in quite a lot of depth. Go to the link below, go watch the section on patience. And so those were the 4 points from the psychology of good technique. This is really useful. The people who've watched the video have left really, really nice comments. I personally think this is one of the most useful videos that I've created. So go check that out. Now, I also have a podcast. I have a podcast where up until very recently, this is the only place where I talked about the psychology of learning a musical instrument. It's also called Heart of the Piano. So there's 4 episodes in particular, well, 5 really, but 4 episodes in particular that I'm thinking about. And these are called the most important psychological skills to master. 1, 2, 3, 4. The first one, and again, really, I'm not going to do them justice. This is the too long didn't read version of it. They're going to sound really obvious and basic, but if you go and listen to the episodes, I go into so much more detail about these things. Number 1, and there'll be a link above and a link below. This is always look in every single moment for what there is to love. This is really too much for me to go into here, because it's more than just a platitude. This has the potential to completely transform how you play your instrument. There's a difference between just playing and just hitting all the correct notes, trying to have good technique, trying to be good, pressing all the right levers in the right order. And once you start looking for what there is to love, it's like that is surely the definition of what musicality is. Someone asked me recently, what do you think is the definition of musicality? What is it to be musical? How can we define it? And in my opinion, playing with a sense of love is what being musical is. I cannot think of a better way of defining it. Now, it's very difficult to describe, to define what is love. What is it to look for what there is to love? It's way too much to go into now. Go listen to my podcast episode, and I demonstrate why this is so important. And I said there were actually 5 episodes. The 5th episode is going over the 4 key psychological skills with someone who is a student. And it's kind of taking the place of a masterclass where she listened to the 4 episodes and then asks me loads of questions, and we apply it to her playing. So that is the episode to listen to for a very practical look at how you apply these things to your playing. So that was number 1, look for what there is to love. Number 2 I call this magic wand practice. So I think to most people watching this, it should be kind of obvious. Most people just know this, that good technique is being relaxed. But it's very difficult to tell people, relax, play and be relaxed. That just almost never works. And most of the time when we're practicing, we can't just make ourselves relax. So there's this thing that I talk about in this particular episode, and I describe how to carry out step by step this thing that to me gets in my students not only how to be relaxed, but how to come up with really good practicing techniques. I'm not going to go into it now. I'm going to recommend that you go to that podcast episode, link above, link in the description below. And then number 3, I talk about the importance of cultivating a deep inner physical felt sense that we are always good enough. Always good enough. It's a physical feeling that we have. And conversely, if we start to feel insecure, if we start to feel, oh God, I'm not good enough. What if I'm not good enough? We start imagining all the people who could judge us, all the things about ourselves, and we judge ourselves and go, that I'm not good enough. I think it's very, very useful to catch that we can link them to physical feelings in the body. And by the way, in case you haven't guessed by now, I am interested in Buddhism, and I've been doing meditation for years. These are all kinds of things that I think Buddhism has... I won't say that I found them through Buddhism, because I think that I've always done these, but I think these were clearer for me once I started doing meditation. So this is so important. And most people, I demonstrate, I coach them in lessons, and they feel it and they're like, oh, wow, it can be life-changing and transformative. But it's one of these things, all of these things that I've spoken about so far, all of them, including the ones from the video. It's not enough just to intellectually know these things. It's not about the intellect. In the same way that Buddhism is not about an intellectual understanding of studying what the Buddha is supposed to have taught. It's about the felt sense of practicing and doing. So this cultivation of this felt sense of good enough, it's a practice, and it's a lifelong practice. And, also I just want to make clear, this is not just like oh yeah, that'll do. Yeah, whatever, man. It's like, yeah, it's not being half-assed, if you know what I mean. This is part of what is, for me, peak performance. This is being exceptionally good. And to be exceptionally good, you can only get there by accepting where you are and that you are good enough. Because what happens if you don't do that is you then perform worse. Hopefully that's kind of, now that I put it in that way, it's obvious. So, even if I'm wanting to play at my absolute best and I'm feeling very perfectionistic, if I don't practice the inner physical felt sense that I'm already good enough, I'm never going to play at my full potential. So anyway, go listen to that podcast episode, link above and below. Then my 4th one, this is a much more complex one, but this is like, basically I sum it up as keep changing the focus of your awareness, say every 5 minutes that you're practicing. And really, really, like, if I was to boil this down a little bit more, it's really like mindfulness or meditation. When you're playing, you want to consciously choose where you want your awareness. And what I notice in almost every single one of my students is that when they're playing, they have no conscious control over where their awareness gets yanked to. It'll get yanked to staring at their fingers. It'll be yanked all over the place to the thing that's difficult. And this ties in with audiation and listening to what you're doing. If you don't have conscious control over where your awareness goes, how can you listen to what you're doing? Because most people, when they're playing, get yanked into thinking about what they're doing, and their attention just gets pulled all over the place. They can't listen to what they're doing. So go listen to that podcast episode, links above and below. Super, super important. And then there was that 5th episode, link above and below. That 5th episode, really useful for practical demonstration of how you apply these things, and also to explain them in a little bit more depth to someone who was sort of had questions about it. Then I recorded a 5th podcast episode, which is also a YouTube video, links above and below. And this is an awareness of musical tension and release, which is also a felt sense thing that you feel in your chest. In my opinion, this is one of the most important things that without this, unless we're doing it intuitively and naturally, the people who are really talented kind of do this intuitively and naturally. But I believe that if you do this consciously, you can become even more musical and even more expressive. I'm not going to go into too much depth at the moment. All the details are in the podcast episode and the video, but this is just one of the most powerful things that you can do. And, you know, one of the things about technique should always be a means to an end. It should never just be that you have technique just so that other people go, wow, look at that person's technique. That is not the purpose of technique. And, you know, being a virtuoso is not about being flashy and playing fast and having good technique. Technique should be a means to an end for what you want to express. Now, if what you want to express is fire and dazzle, then good technique will help you have that. But if you don't imagine, if you don't feel and hear the qualities of fire and dazzle, then all the technique in the world isn't going to help you. So yeah, tension and release, really important to sort of start understanding what is it that you want to say musically? What is it that you want to feel? And then another thing that I spoke about in the second part of the video on leaps and jumps, which isn't out yet, but it's going to be out really soon. I spent a little while talking in that video. It's something that I do talk to my students about very regularly, and that is that it's very common that I see students being pulled into believing that if they work hard, and by working hard, it's staring really hard, pushing, being tense, this feeling of striving and tension, that this feeling of working hard is sort of almost like we've been lied to by our culture that we've grown up in, that feeling of striving and working hard, it's like a Protestant work ethic, you know, that will give you good results and you're going to be good. And by the way, when I say Protestant work ethic, it's a thing that permeates all of Western culture. So you don't just have to be Protestant. It applies to Catholics. It applies to every religion. But anyway, I'm not going to go into that. But it's this feeling that if you struggle, you sweat, you're frustrated and you're tense, that's going to pay off and you're going to get all the rewards. And I'm sorry, but you've been lied to. And especially when it comes to creative things and artistic things, it doesn't work that way. But really, it works. That applies really to a lot of stuff in life. Now, really what it's about the changing of habits. And changing habits is kind of work. You know, no one really likes changing habits. If changing habits was easy and comfortable, then they wouldn't be habits. The definition of a habit is a thing that we do without thinking that's difficult to change, right? So basically, I will leave a link to where I talk about this in the next video in that series on leaps and jumps. And you don't have to be interested in leaps and jumps, but you know, I'll leave a link to where the time code in that video. But basically, to become a really, really good musician is really number one about the creation of all the right habits. That is so important. So we need the habit of changing habits. You know, can't overemphasize that. Then one more thing, I haven't actually spoken about this in a video or a podcast episode yet. I really want this to be the key psychological skill number 6 in the podcast episode, but I can't emphasize how important this is. This is how important it is to constantly be listening to music. So, you know, if you have Spotify, listening to as much music as you can on Spotify of the kind of music that you want to play. So if you're learning classical music, you're wasting your time pretty much, and you're wasting time learning technique and working super hard if you're not spending lots, and I mean lots of time listening to classical music on Spotify, or jazz if you're learning jazz, or rock and pop if you're learning rock and pop, or whatever it is, or piano if you're learning piano, or violin if you're learning violin. I cannot emphasize how important this is. And interestingly, there's been some people who I've met who have played piano for 1 year or 2 years, completely self-taught. no one's taught them technique. And actually, when you see them play, they don't always have the best technique. There's one person in particular that I can think of that came to a piano meetup group several years ago. She was so good. She played Chopin after 2 years of learning. She was so good. I was just so blown away. How did you get to be so good in 2 years? But you could tell her technique wasn't right. If I was her teacher, there's so much that I'd want to put right. But you could tell that she just had it. She just had it. She'd communicated all the things. It's like, and her secret was that she had just become obsessed with listening to classical piano, and to the point where she virtually did nothing than just listen to classical piano. That is just one of the most important things. I'm hoping to invite somebody onto the podcast and YouTube channel soon. Basically, I think she was learning for less than a year, and she's so good. Again, she was playing Chopin, so good. And you know, when I spoke to her, I knew what her secret was going to be. She listens to so much music. I can't emphasize how important that is. So anyway, I hope that was short enough. I've really tried to keep all of that short as possible, but really all of that I'm hoping was just going to whet your appetite to go and listen to where I talk about these things in a bit more detail. So again, the links are all going to be below of those things, so you can go check them out. So, you know, if you enjoyed this episode, please do like and subscribe. And click on the bell icon to know when more videos and tutorials are coming out, all this kind of good stuff. At the moment, I do have a bit of space in my studio for some online students. I really like the online format, like I was saying in the previous video that I've just made on leaps and jumps. I myself, a couple of years ago, I was saying just before, I went and had a really advanced teacher to help me with a few bits of polishing my technique. That was online because I think it's a really, really good format. So yeah, if you're interested in having lessons, there'll be a link in the description below for how to contact me. But anyway, thank you very much for watching. Hopefully I've been way less waffly than usual, and I will see you at the next one. So go and do some practice, or go watch more of my videos. Take care and goodbye.